I would say when I first started Earth back in ancient times, I was very conceptually oriented. Like I had concepts, and then the music grew out of the concepts. And then over the course of the band or the years, I write music a lot faster than originally, and I think playing live a lot more. I got more into spontaneity, and so the music generally now comes first, and then the concepts sort of reveal themselves later. So yeah, I would say that's the biggest difference. And then when I started, I was more into recording and the studio side of things, and now I like the live thing better. I feel that's where the magic happens, and the record. I mean, I still want to make great records and stuff, but they're kind of they exist so that we can play them live, I guess.
Well, I think also when I joined the band 18 years ago, that's a child ago, we were very, very perfectionistic, and it would take a lot longer to write songs and to kind of arrange them, and we were very particular and very exacting. And now we just have been playing together so long that it's kind of like an unspoken language at this point. And we're a lot better at playing off of each other, and stuff is quickly pursued or dropped. And so it's not banging your head against a brick wall anymore. It's very usually kind of fluid, and just the music comes about a lot faster.
Yeah, it's definitely more spontaneous, and then you kind of know right away whether it's going to work or it's not going to work, and whether to keep going with this riff's good, let's go with it, or this riff is not so good.
And I'm like, oh, that sounds like a solo song, Dylan. Hey.
Hey, that's not true.
I'm just kidding.
The solo thing kind of started after the Angels records, because that one was heavily influenced. That's when the interest in English folklore and English folk music kind of happened, and it was something I was still interested in, but I didn't want to keep doing it with Earth, because I always want to leave room for Earth to do its thing, which is changing and growing and whatnot. So since I was still interested in that and didn't want to saddle it with Earth with it for yet another album, that's kind of where the solo thing took off. And then the hiatus wasn't really planned. It was kind of the result of leaving Southern Lord, getting new management, and so it was a transitional period, and then the opportunity came up to do the solo record and to work with Emma Rundle, so that's kind of why that happened, I guess. And then it sort of was, I guess it kind of gave me a chance. I mean, we were already working with Kathy as our manager, but it gave me a chance to work with the label.
Just kind of feel it out.
Yeah.
Before we dove all the way in.
And I mean, I knew there would be some time between albums, but it ended up being a bit longer than planned, but it all, turned out well, so. Yeah, I mean, I guess the concept was to do just the core of the band, to show what we could do, just the two of us, as opposed to I mean, we've played with some amazing musicians over the years, and I certainly, love playing with other people, and they've all contributed amazing things to the bands and stuff. I mean, that's what's great about working with other musicians is they can contribute stuff that you can't think of. But I just felt it was time to just kind of like, oh, let's show what just we can do, you know, like, and then like, you know, Primitive and Deadly had a lot of, you know, well, not a lot, but had, you know, the guest vocals and stuff like that. So I kind of wanted to not do that with this record.
Well, the drums were always kind of leaving a lot of space for a lot of other lushness and intricate layers and very dense recordings, so they never, ever, ever stepped forward. It was always basically leaving room for other instrumentation. That was the whole point of the drums on record. And this was the first album where the drums were like a leading focal point.
Got to step
like
forward.
a call and response. They were just as much melodical as the guitar and the bass, so it was very fun.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, there was a couple songs that were sort of older that came forward, like Belladonna. Well, the oldest one was Cats on the Briar, which we wrote at a sound check at Hellfest, and then the Descending Belladonna and Mandrake's Hymn were themes that we developed for a live soundtrack of at the Ghent Film Festival for the Belladonna of Sadness film. So those, and then, you know, we rearranged them because they didn't have the visual thing going on. But then the rest of the record was done pretty much like the month before we went into the studio, just like writing and
just playing,
coming up with stuff. And then they're kind of arranged while we were recording them. So it's very like quick.
We didn't want it to seem overly worked or fettered. We just kind of wanted it to be very flowing and free.
It was one of the easiest sessions that way, where we just went in and banged it out.
And we wanted to work with Mel Detmer for that reason, because she's known us for a long time, and like we knew that it wouldn't be too many cooks in the kitchen. Like she would trust our vision and like just facilitate it.
Yeah, we'd always worked with her before. She had done our mastering, but this was our first time working with her as an engineer. And then she'd also done live sound for us. So. This one went really smoothly. Yeah, there was like Primitive and Deadly was the opposite. There was like
but not this one.
That one was full of
no raging fights, very pleasant. Like it was just very, it came easy.
Yeah, Primitive and Deadly, there was a lot of drama with the label,
a lot
and
of
the
cooks
manager
in the kitchen on that one.
This one and the Angels sessions seemed like the two, like they would just flowed really naturally. And I wanted everything to be really upfront and present, because like Bees, for example, is a very lush sounding album and very sparkly,
very layered,
and a lot of layers. And this one I wanted that, I guess, that kind of sort of just classic like 70s Olympic Studios, just like, everything's
kind of
like,
the immediacy and the tension.
Yeah, everything's
right
just
front.
like up front. And
I know I wanted the percussion really high, like really high in the mix, kind of like the old 70s, or like, some of the
like
Traffic albums where they're just ridiculously high in the mix, but it sounds great,
And then we did a lot of, hard panning, which like no one does anymore. Everything's mixed in the middle nowadays, whereas back in the 70s, you'd have the cool, like, one guitar on that side and one guitar on that side kind of thing. That's the goal to me. That was sort of when I, after my first hiatus coming back to guitar, at first I was all like really concerned about like this kind of amp and this kind of pedal and like all that kind of stuff. And then like I realized like it doesn't really matter what I use, it's gonna be me, you know? And then, I mean, that's what I like love about Hendrix. Like Hendrix is like, you know, I mean, sometimes you can even hear it. The mic will catch him like singing his solo while he's playing, but like that's the goal. Is like the guitar should be your voice, not, you know.
Remember James Blood Ulmer, also like front row. Every single note he was playing, you'd hear him humming or singing it. You're like, what is? Oh, he's singing his solo. I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
Actually, sounds like him. Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's what the guitarists I love, or like, you know what I mean. It's them. It's not like about like their amp or their this or you know like or like their big pedal board or you know, it's just like it's them, and it doesn't matter what they're using, it's gonna be them. And then hopefully it's you know, coming through, not, you know,
the equipment.
I mean, it's like, it's funny because I think guitar has been like, it's very obvious with like wind instruments, you know, and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, that's, you know, Pharoah Sanders, or that's Coltrane, or that's
Miles Davis.
Yeah. Whereas like guitar, it's really easy to not. You're not using your breath, I guess. And I mean, I think that's why so many guitarists end up overplaying, because you know and they don't think about phrasing, and that's one thing I always try and think about is like phrasing. Like, does this sound like?
Is it in the natural breath?
Yeah, like breathing and, you know, not just going.
It's kind of similar.
Yeah, exactly.
It's similar to with like drums. It's like there aren't very many drummers where I'm like, I can tell who that drummer is despite whether they're playing with their band or not. And like, that's one thing I kind of try to do. Yeah. Like just kind of do my own thing and sound like myself, even though you're just hitting things. But somehow, hopefully, you can totally sound like yourself. So.
Yeah, it's all about projecting through your instrument.
Yeah, or intent.
Intent. Originally, we were gonna have some artwork, and then that was just gonna be for the inside, but the moment I saw that photo, because like the guy had this crazy studio and was taking the pictures, and then they were coming up on this computer screen, and like the moment that one came up, I was just like, that's the cover. Like I just knew like that's the cover. Like we're not going to use the artwork. Like,
the artwork kind of fell through, so it was fortuitous. That was such a strong picture.
Then, that's neither here nor there. Yeah. It's like the moment I saw the photo, I knew that was what.
It kind of had like the Stooges' raw power, kind of like strength to the photo, and we were just like, it's not about beauty, it's like, about emotion. The photo, which is why
I just felt it was a great classic, you know, rock photo, and it's something that as a band we've never done. We've never put the band on the cover. It's always been like artwork and then maybe some band photos inside. But,
maybe.
so it just felt like it all, you know, it was like, it just was right. Like, you know, okay, this is like presenting the band, and then that picture is the band, and it's you know, it was just like one of those moments where you just know that's it. It was originally going to be, what was it?
Desideratum.
Desideratum, full of fun,
like,
burning lips.
But then it was too long, too much.
Kathy was like,
I hate these titles we can't pronounce. No one knows how to spell them. Gotta break it down.
And we decided, it was too long.
And then it was kind of
too pretentious.
Yeah, it was too and then like it's pretty sensual and lush. So we're like, you know, let's give it a kind of from the hips album title.
Yeah.
Which we don't usually do. Our stuff is very kind of art, kind of a little more pulled back from emotion, a little more scientific sounding usually.
Well, I don't know about if I'd agree with that being scientific sounding, but I mean, I've always, because there's usually no lyrical content, that the title becomes more important, as the only linguistic signpost to what's happening. So I've always wanted the titles to be very evocative. Like I used to have a notebook full of titles, and then as I wrote songs, I'd
You used to have like a million song titles
and no songs, and now I have songs and no titles. But yeah, with this album, it was like, a desire for like a strong feminine energy and a strong feminine presence to the music, to the titles, because I feel like a lot of heavy music has become very masculine and like all up here, and like to me, like rock and roll is about like the hips and like
being able to dance to
it. Like I feel like the weird separation now between dance and music, and like, oh, dance music has to be EDM or something, and it's like, no, like rock and roll should be, you should move to rock and roll. So yeah, it was a bunch of stuff like that. I mean, my wife Holly's a dancer, so like I'm sure that had a big influence on, and we talked about how they've been sort of separated, and like dance has sort of been like, I don't know, kind of marginalized, I guess you could say. I feel like, not just women need to be empowered, but like dudes need to empower their feminine side and their feminine nature, and not be so worried about, being like, all these guys worried about how tough and badass they are, and like, and like, I think for people to be balanced, you need to, there's the sacred masculine, the sacred feminine, and they need to be in balance, and they're not, and they're especially not in the like heavy music scene. So. We'll probably do some more shows, I guess, because it's been a while since we've hit like, Australia and New Zealand and Japan, so those might be coming up. I don't know. I'm kind of hoping next year to take a little break from touring, just to, and then either hopefully work on some solo stuff and some newer stuff.
We're already talking about the Next Earth album too.
Yeah,
so we've got ideas, man.
We've got
Big
a new
ideas.
song that we've been playing during the set that doesn't even have a title yet. So definitely probably some recording next year in lieu of a lot of touring, but we'll see what happens.